Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Top Producers Nation podcast. This, of course, is the podcast that is made for top producers by top producers and with none other than Tampa Bay and other markets' top producers. You can check us out if you haven't already at topproducersnation.com, where you can actually see the different resources and the community that we've put together to try to help agents become top producers in their desired market. So feel free to join that community or at least apply to join when you see that link below. If you don't already subscribe to the podcast, just click the little subscribe button. That way you'll be notified every time we have a new episode, which is weekly. And today we get to hang out with one of our guests here in Tampa Bay, Mr. Bobby Poth. How are you, Bobby?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt. It's good to have you on the show for sure. Bobby and I go way back because Bobby was featured in an issue of Tampa Bay Real Producers, which is our local franchise here, of course, in Tampa Bay. I think it was as a broker spotlight, I believe, a couple of years ago.
So. It was like 4 years ago, I think.
It was, yeah. That. We started it back in 2019, so I know it was in those first year or two. And that was when you had first joined Mainframe, I believe, or was about to join Mainframe, if I remember correctly.
It was. I think it was, right at the time that I joined them.
Yeah,
right
exactly. So Bobby is with Mainframe Real Estate, based out of St. Pete here in the Tampa Bay area. So why don't we just start a little bit with your background for people who don't necessarily know your story yet. Did you grow up in Tampa Bay? If not, how'd you find yourself here? And eventually, how'd you get interested in real estate?
Yeah, so I'm one of the rare Florida natives. I was born at Bayfront in St. Pete, so I'm native to St. Pete, but I grew up between St. Pete and Homosassa, Crystal River area, about 2 hours north. So native to the area. And
that is rare. We don't find that a lot.
Yeah. And, absolutely love it.
Very cool. So you grew up in St. Pete, and then so what were you doing? Where'd you go to school?
So I grew up most of the time in Homosassa, Crystal River. So I went to Lecanto High School, graduated from there, did a semester at USF before I jumped into real estate.
Nice. So real estate was kind of early then in the process.
Yep, first career.
Right, when you were so you were just out of college or even while you were in school?
Yeah, so I actually never even finished college. Okay. I do not advise that. I feel like you have to climb the ladder much.
Everybody's got their own journey.
A much bigger challenge. But yeah, real estate has been my first career. So I got my real estate license in 2004.
Okay.
So this October was 20 years.
Wow, so you've definitely seen the ebbs and flows of the market, huh?
Yeah, very much so.
So when you got that license back then, like what was that first year like if you think back to it in terms of your early experience of how you got things rolling?
Yeah, delusional. I got my real estate license so young, and you have this idea that you're going to make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And also, we're an industry where we put our photos on absolutely everything. So there's an ego there, and especially when you're 20 years old. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people, I've taught real estate courses for a long time, and I always tell my students, if I could change one thing about my career, it would be to not have that ego so young and to join a team and really learn. I always do things the hard way. So my first year, especially my first, I'd say 8 months, it was this delusion that business was going to come to me or that I was somehow, entitled to it. I grew up there. I knew a ton of people. Of course, people were going to work with me.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize at the time that, what I was really combating was I was a 20-year-old gay kid in Homosassa, Florida, who had no history of being a professional whatsoever. Mm-hmm. That idea that people were going to list their home with me, especially expensive home, was delusional without really proving myself.
Building that trust and credibility.
Yeah, so it's
interesting. Do you remember how many deals you did your first year?
I don't remember how many deals I did my first year, but the tipping point for me, because a lot of it too was kind of a barrier to entry with getting respected by other agents as well. Especially in like a higher end price point. Mm-hmm. And I had. So
that was something you tried to focus on early, was getting into that luxury market?
It was, don't we all? Yeah, we all think we're going to, come in and, and this was before $1 Million Listing. This was before Zillow was even on the scene.
Right.
And, I had worked for an orthopedic practice in high school, and the physician and his wife, who was the administrator, and she had been a hospital administrator, brilliant people, really trusted me and listed a vacant lot in a neighborhood called Black Diamond, which I'm not a golfer, but if you're a golfer, it's a big golfing community with a quarry. And it was like the exclusive neighborhood there.
Okay.
And listed this vacant lot for sale with me. And so suddenly I had this listing in the most exclusive neighborhood in Citrus County.
Yeah.
And then they bought a home in there through me. And that became the fact that I had that association with them kind of gave me that foothold to get through the door.
Yeah.
It really gave me that credibility that I didn't have.
Makes sense. Sometimes all it takes is one, right?
Yeah. And I rode that coattail for sure until the recession hit.
Yeah. Momentum's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And so having that big breakthrough. Now, it sounds like, were you in St. Pete at that time? Or
I
you
was
were-
not. I started my real estate career in Homosassa.
Okay.
Yeah, for a company called ERA American Realty.
Okay.
And ironically, years later, I ended up selling the home of and to the daughter of my first broker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was
Small world, huh?
yeah.
It all comes around. So when did you come to St. Pete?
So I moved back to St. Pete in 2009 or 10.
Was that for business reasons or just it was time for a change personally?
No. So, when the recession hit, I, like a lot of us, went completely broke. And had to find ways to make money. So I tended bar. I ended up taking a job in St. Pete working for a real estate law firm we primarily represented condos and HOAs.
Okay.
And at the same time, I had met my ex who was serving on St. Pete City Council.
Okay.
So, of course, had to be in St. Pete because of that.
Gotcha.
And then that kind of relaunched what I call like the second chapter of my real estate career.
Yeah, interesting. So obviously a lot of agents, if they've been around for a while, have seen ebbs and flows in the market, right? And they sometimes will go through hard times and may never ever come back, right, into the real estate game as a result of that hard time. It sounds like you obviously went through one of the hardest times with the with the big recession of 07, 08 and all those years. But did you give up real estate at all entirely during that time, or were you still kind of practicing it, even if it was just part time to try to get through what was going on?
There were a few years where I put my license in referral. Mostly because I was, you're just trying to make ends meet, and the market was doing nothing.
Yeah.
When I say it was like the lights just turned off one day.
Right.
We were selling real estate like crazy, and then suddenly one day we're like, well, let's go drink on the boat because there's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
So, once you dump enough money into trying to bring business in and things just aren't moving, I had to do everything else to make money.
Yeah.
Once I ended up landing the job at the law firm, that kind of took my focus for probably the first year and a half, growing that firm and establishing my position in it until I was able to get to the point where I could kind of manage both. And that's when I started selling real estate again.
Did you always know you wanted to get back into real estate when the timing was right?
I did, but there's also a part of me that said I never would again. But I mean, it's an industry that once you fall in love with it,
It's in the blood.
Yeah, can you one, not have a college degree and work hard to earn what we do and build a business that is yours. I mean, it just really is a unique industry, but it's hyper local. So I had to reestablish myself with all of that. And thankfully I had a position with the firm where I had some flexibility until it got to the point where I couldn't manage all. Because during that time I was also teaching for Bob Hogue. So I was trying to manage all three.
Yeah, that's a lot. So, and I was going to ask you that too, because you had to build up, it sounds like a new network that was St. Pete based, if that was the area that you were trying to build your business out of.
Yeah.
And was it through like the legal opportunity that you had that kind of opened the door in some ways to build that, or was it other means that got that moving for you?
It was through, a few different things. One was, I was obviously very involved in local politics, and anybody who knows me knows that. So that was part of it. And then also getting involved in the St. Pete Chamber of Commerce. The St. Pete Young Professionals were, I haven't been involved with the Young Professionals in years, but when I was, it was such a vibrant group.
They don't consider you young anymore?
Right.
Is that the problem?
So but it was such a good group, and that really was, something that kind of fed me business.
Yeah.
The networking through that just kind of relaunched everything, which was incredibly helpful.
Over the years, Bobby, has the majority of your business come just organically through that type of affiliations, your community, your network, and how you've built it, or were there other strategies that you've instituted that really helped you take your business off?
Yeah, for me, it's been mostly organic. And I think that that's just because of how I've run my business. When I first started selling real estate, I was with ERA, which was the same. We were owned by the same parent company as Century 21 and Coldwell Banker, and they all have kind of the same training systems. Back then, Keller Williams was not what it is now. So those were really the ones that had like that. If you've never sold before, here's how you do it. Mm-hmm. So I learned how to farm and door knock and cold call and all of that. And I've just never been a cold calling agent. It's just not in my blood.
Sure.
I say I'm a relationship agent. And I think that takes longer to build.
Yep.
For me, most of my stuff, most of the business I do now is from past customers and clients, referrals from other agents, referrals from vendors, and my sphere of influence. That's really what it is. So when I farm, it's really focused more on farming my sphere.
Yeah.
And then my farm area, but mostly my sphere. Everything I do is really kind of focused on that, and it does give like a base level sustained business.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, you said you did over 14 million last year, over 30 units. So I bring that up just because if an agent wants to build an organic based business like you have, it is, like you said, a commitment to patience, right? In a way, because there's a lot of great organizations and communities that you can be a part of to try to build that reputation and get that brand, but it could take some time, right? And at some point, if you can get that baseline established, which it sounds like you have, and it's taking you the time it did to get there, then you can have a very healthy, strong business over time. But that's kind of that bridge that an agent has to figure out whether they can cross it or not,
Right. And I mean, the tried and true ways of building your business, cold calling, all the sales techniques, they do work.
Sure.
They are essential, especially if you don't have a sphere.
Yeah.
I was lucky that through the St. Pete Young Professionals and through, my local connections, I had a network that I was able to tap into. And as I've gotten older, when I started, selling real estate at 20, I didn't have friends that were buying $1 million homes. Mm-hmm. At 40, they are slightly more comfortable than they were then. So that price point just naturally kind of tends to increase.
Makes sense.
Your sphere is just different.
And your experience, what have you found with like when you're working a lot off of past clients? What's that cycle look like from your experience? Is it on average, every 5 years, every 7 years? I know there's numbers out there that talk about how long the average person will buy and sell. What's been your experience in that world?
I don't even know if I could
put a number on it.
That because they're all so different.
Yeah.
When it's a young couple that hasn't started a family yet and then they're starting a family, that
changes things.
Change.
Yeah.
Or, I have, two close friends who decided to downsize a couple of years ago, only to retire early, only to a year later decide that they now want to buy a home, and now they're deciding to upsize again.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on their individual needs. I was I was talking to my business partner, Alex, the other day, and I'm like, I start feeling like my high-end people are starting to dry up a little bit. Like, how much more can they buy?
Yeah.
But every year there's, people seem to still make moves. Our focus now.
Is it usually personal residences, or do you work with investors who are looking for it's mostly cash flow?
Mostly personal residences.
Gotcha.
In our area in St. Pete, it's really challenging to find cash flow properties.
Yeah.
Especially with where the market is right now. I think we need to see some adjustments for that. But our focus now is really, we look at what we did 2 years ago and last year, and I look at where there's missed opportunity. Because I know I'm not going to be the cold calling agent. I'm not going to go, door knock every weekend. That's just not what I'm going to do.
Does Alex utilize some of those strategies still, or is he same strategy as you?
Same strategy as me. I mean, he'll do, I will say he will door knock more than I will, especially hunting for properties for people. And Alex will drive anywhere. I mean, if we got licensed in Georgia, he'd drive to Georgia just to show a house.
Yeah.
So, he's much younger in his, career than I am. For me, the missed opportunities are we really need to start, and we have started, really data mining our sphere and digging in with more touch points to them and how we farm that a little bit better. Our goal this year is to more than double what we did last year.
Nice.
Which, in order to do that, we have to, really start targeting our sphere more than it just being organic.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what does that generally look like? Is that utilizing CRMs and certain automations and systems that you're creating to try to have those touch points? Because I'm sure it's not just all manually, like relying on our brain to remember things isn't always the best business plan.
Yeah.
So utilizing that and leveraging that technology, is that a big part of it?
That is a big part of it. Implementing CRMs and using them better.
Yeah.
Which is what we're in the process of doing. And that's, it's much easier to do it from the beginning than to retroactively go back and do it all. And then the other side of it, what I did a lot before COVID, which was really effective, was customer or client appreciation, happy hours, and networking events.
Yep.
A lot of times when people move to the area, especially with St. Pete, they say, I move here and I feel like a local. Everybody's so welcoming. But oftentimes they come and they don't know people. So when I can put them in a room with other people I've worked with, I'm the rock star, right?
Yep.
So that has been huge.
I know a little bit about that.
Right? Yeah. You're kind of the master at it. During COVID, I stopped doing that. And we're starting to implement that again this year because I realized last year it's something that's so effective.
Yeah. It's huge, yeah.
And one, they really appreciate it. It's an opportunity. We work with people, especially when we're selling their home or helping them buy a home. They're talking to us every day. And then they're not because we have to move on to the next.
Right.
And doing that quarterly is a really good way to, if everything else fails, they miss your emails, you forgot to text them on a birthday for some reason, there's at least that where there's a touch point.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. So quarterly is kind of the routine that you would hope to institute going forward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that what you were doing before? Same type?
It was. And I always had a rule too. I never had them sponsored by people, even when vendors would reach out. Mm-hmm. We'll probably change that as they get more expensive. But it was one of those things where I wanted all the, if it was the title company that worked on the files or they work with multiple home inspectors or lenders, I wanted all those people there too because they also worked with these people.
For sure.
They're
part of the experience.
Never met them in person, but they know their names. So it just kind of adds that personal experience.
Yeah. No, I love that. Where do you usually do them?
So I did them at a lot of places. We would do them at various restaurants or bars in downtown St. Pete. Mm-hmm. Supply, the bar tab and food and just let people come.
There's plenty of options down there.
Yeah, and always ask them to invite friends. Yeah. They could bring whoever they want. I don't care how many because it's more people that are seeing me, seeing our team, seeing what we're doing. And again, everybody there for the most part had worked with me. So that's, you're the rock star in the room.
Makes sense. When you think about the goal you mentioned earlier of trying to double your volume next year, do you view that as doubling the number of transactions or doubling the sales volume because you think there would be a way to just create a higher price point with the same number of deals, if that makes sense?
Ideally price point.
Okay.
I'd obviously rather,
work with the same amount of people.
Work smarter than harder.
Right.
But I think obviously more transactions as well. We always have the capacity for more. It's just how we scale.
Yeah.
I'm at a point in my career too where I think of quality of life, and any real estate convention you go to, Florida Realtor Convention, and there's always a section on the burnout, quality of life. And for me, I don't know that I have a goal of growing bigger, having this huge mega team anymore. I really don't care what numbers show up under my name, none of that matters at this point in my career. I care more about the quality of work I'm doing and what I'm making.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the relationships I'm sure that you're developing along the way, right?
Right. And to me, good work, do all the good you can for all, for as long as you can to all the people you can. For me, doing good work, knowing my craft, being the best at it is the most important.
Are you still finding, Bobby, that you're getting new clients through some of these associations and groups that you're still involved with or passionate about? Has that changed at all over the years?
It hasn't. Mm-hmm. I think for me, especially with my network, as the market always changes. And I always say the last quarter was really tough. We had 2 storms and an election. And it's always slow going into an election. It always picks up after an election. It doesn't matter what the outcome.
Yeah.
A lot of my sphere, however, is very affected politically. So that tends to be a lot of where my referrals come in. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of shifting a little bit because people are uncertain about where they want to be.
Gotcha.
But, there's still a huge amount of referrals that come in from it. You know,
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work over the years with Equality Florida, and I still get, referrals from people who are actively involved in Equality Florida or who I worked with. The St. Pete Young Professionals, not so much because I'm not involved in it anymore, but our office is in the Chamber building, which doesn't hurt.
Yeah. You're in the middle of everything right there. So you get a lot of exposure from that too. I was going to mention briefly your relationship with Mainframe, because you've been with them now for 9 years, 10 years? 4
or 5 years.
Okay, I was off.
I think 4.
4 or 5 years. And you mentioned off camera that you had that there's like a tech piece that Mainframe also brings to the table that's been a good fit. So I don't know if you can hit on that real quick, as how that's been able to support you in your career.
Yeah, it's actually what brought me to Mainframe. I always say that if there's a difficult road, I have to take it first and learn those lessons. And, when I jumped back into real estate hardcore full time, I decided to do it by opening a brokerage, which, a lot
Good decision.
Yeah, in hindsight, I should have grown a team, then opened it. I also opened it with the brokerage being my name. Unfortunately, I listened to a marketing company that convinced me that was a good idea, despite my gut saying it wasn't. I was introduced by another realtor to Mainframe. And when I looked at this company, I was like, this is what I've envisioned growing my brokerage into. So when I met with Sean Frank, the founder of the company, I really wanted to pick his brain and copy what he did. And I was really interested in their tech, because it was a huge selling feature of what they were doing, their tech and their marketing. And Sean and John Russell, our co-founder, invited me to sit down and see the tech. And I'm like, wow, they're going to give me the secret sauce.
Wow.
This is great. And I wanted to license.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah. And they're smart guys. I wanted to license the tech that they had, which they were not interested in doing.
Yeah.
That conversation evolved into me basically closing my brokerage and merging it into what became the Mainframe St. Pete office.
How long did you have your brokerage before that?
I think 3 years.
Okay.
3 or 4 years. And it was fine. I had a small team. We were doing fine. But what I realized is I had to produce to keep everybody fed. And I can sell something if I believe in it. I can sell my ability to sell a home and market a product. I know what I'm good at. I know I'm really good from the education standpoint. I'm really good at teaching. I will put my contract knowledge above anybody's. I can't recruit unless I believe what I'm recruiting for.
Sure.
And with my individual brokerage, I couldn't recruit new agents because I didn't feel like I was the best fit for them. A new agent needed a lot more support than I could give.
Yep.
I also wasn't attracting seasoned agents. So what I was attracting were people who weren't really doing a lot. So I was having to produce to keep people fed.
Yeah.
When I joined Mainframe, we kind of restructured everything, and the tech portion was the huge driving factor. As an independent broker, I was trying to piece together .loop or transaction desk or this system and that system, and nothing really worked as one unit.
Yeah.
And Mainframe created Abe, which is our automatic backend, and it does everything. It's how the company runs. It's how our commissions are dispersed. It's how we do our business tracking. We don't use .loop or transaction desk or anything else. Our system is within Abe. The customer has their own little portal to it. It handles everything. I can track all of our sales. We have a light CRM. That's the only thing it's not really good at. We can create our marketing pieces in there. It encompasses everything. I can use it on my phone. And for me, it just makes working a lot easier. So it helps a busier agent do business better.
Yeah.
And
Makes
honestly, anytime I've ever even thought about making a change in my career, I think about, God, having to go to a new system.
Right.
Like it's so good at what it does. There's no perfect system.
It's a good retention tool too.
But ours is pretty good. And because, Mainframe is in the process of trying to go public with that tech, as an agent, I will make a decent amount of money when that happens because of how long I've been with the company and my production. So there's a benefit to
Makes sense.
to us as well.
You're somebody, Bobby, who has been in different roles now in your career, as an individual producer, as a recruiter, as a broker. You're right now, I think, focused a lot on personal production again and building that, your sales volume, hitting your goals for 2025. I'm curious, what do you find more fulfilling, right, with these different roles that you've experienced? Somebody who maybe is listening who is not quite sure their perfect niche, right? Maybe it's they're debating, do I want to be a broker? Do I not want to be a broker? Do I want to be a team leader? Do I just want to focus on production? I think hearing some people's different opinions can help sometimes. So I'm curious what you find more fulfilling.
For me, I think I find each area of what I've done in my career fulfilling in a different way. Anybody who's thinking about, I think everybody should get their broker's license first, because you don't know what you don't know. I think it's a great thing. I wish everybody had their broker's license. I don't think you should become a broker because you want to keep more of your commission or because you think it's going to be easier to grow a team and not work. I think that you really have to have a vision. The founder of our company had a really good vision in growing Mainframe. He opened his brokerage. He got into real estate at the same time I did. And how he grew this company is, to me, nothing shy of brilliant. I couldn't do it. What I realized was my strength is not in recruiting agents, which in a managing broker position is a huge component of that.
Sure.
From a managing broker standpoint, the broker aspect of it, the solving problems, the dealing with contract issues, the dealing with conflicts, the navigating situations, that's something I really love and I'm really passionate about. And I'm lucky that even though that's not an official role of mine, both agents in our company and agents that I've taught over the years through teaching for Bob Hogue or when I co-owned a school call me for advice. Other brokers call. That's the stuff I really, really love. I believe a rising tide lifts all ships. So that kind of empowers me, but there's more money in production. Producing gives me the ability to, grow a business that works for my lifestyle. I can work as much or as little as I want. What other industry can I be on vacation and, now that I have a great business partner, still work and still keep things going. Sure.
Did you find that when you go down the broker route, do you lose some of those connections and relationships with your client base, knowing that you're not in production necessarily at that time? I'm assuming that could be a natural byproduct of just not being as focused, obviously, on the production side, right?
It is. Because unless you're a competing broker, which I was, so I was still producing. Yeah. I think when you go into a non-competing role, you're just referring business out. I mean, and I use the co-founder of our company, John, is a good example. People still reach out to him that he, worked with when he was in production. Yeah. But not at the same level that they did. Right. So I think it's just, to me, it is a huge career shift. For me at this point in my career, I love the people that we work with. Alex and I do our own staging, for all of our properties. I always say we will work harder than everybody else. We do all of our own staging. We have such a concierge approach to everything that we do. And we're
so you're an interior designer as well as a top producing agent, huh?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't go to interior designer quite.
Not quite official yet, but
we just know what sells.
You have the eye for it.
But it's, every time I think about what else I would do, I can't think of anything else I would do. Yeah. I've been doing this so long, but also, it's a great industry. It just is a really tough one to succeed in.
I think it's really cool too how there's a lot of different ways to succeed in it. So you can be a focused recruiter and really be great at that. Maybe that's your passion and your niche. You can be that person who just loves working with clients. You can be the person who's a lead who just makes it rains with leads and loves marketing. Right.
And we all have our own skill sets. My business partner Alex is much younger than me and has not been in the business nearly as long. Rockstar agent. When he joined me, it was just as an associate position, and within 2 months we were 50-50 business partners. We are so different in how we approach things, though. Our skill sets are so different. Alex is supremely confident and comfortable on camera, and that video component of the industry, it's just something Alex excels at. I'm not so much. If I'm on, I'm having to put it on. It's not something that's natural for me. But the contracts and the negotiating and everything else,
that's your wheelhouse.
So we and not that Alex isn't great at that too, but we just kind of blend as this perfect team. So I think part of being successful too is knowing what you're not good at and leveraging that.
That makes sense.
We have a great transaction coordinator because we're too busy to handle certain aspects of things on our own. Giving up control and realizing that as we look at how our team grows, the next person we bring on is going to have a very different skill set than what Alex and I bring to the table.
Sure.
So knowing what you're not
when your clients work with you, they're working with both of you. They're getting access to you and on both. Okay, so it's not like you have your clients, Alex has his clients. You guys basically have clients together.
We do tend to take the lead on. If it was somebody you have the personal connection with or somebody you brought in, one of us tends to take the lead on our stuff, but we're always both working everything.
Yeah, which is cool because if there's a need there that you can't step in at that moment, then Alex is there to be able to help out, which I think is what a good partnership is supposed to accomplish.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And, if we need good cop, that's Alex, bad cop is me.
That makes sense. All right, a couple things just for people to get to know you a little bit more as well on the personal side. So you already shared a little bit about some of the associations that you love and that you're passionate about. I know you have a passion for politics. And you ever see yourself as a politician one day, Bobby?
No.
You want to go down that path? No?
No. I mean, I did briefly. No. I think
you have a career to focus on.
I know you and I have had conversations a lot over the years. I think that all politics are local.
Yeah.
And I think that most people, in my experience, get into politics on a local level because they want to do good and they want to create change. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that in order to rise up in politics, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, you have to start pandering to various groups or interests or parties in order to get that financial support to rise up.
Yeah.
And that's
where it gets icky.
It does. Yeah. And it becomes so divisive. And, I think about how much it affects me personally, just being who I am, but then also, how much I also let it affect me personally living through it. I can't imagine being a politician in it.
As your full career.
Yeah, it just is not. Yeah,
I get it.
It's not my calling.
What do you love to do for fun? What keeps your hobbies, interests, and your time when you're not jamming in the business?
Travel. I discovered a love of travel right before I opened my brokerage. It was actually what kind of, was the catalyst of me starting that was, I took a 1 month sabbatical from everything and just kind of did like an eat, pray, love trip. And it was my first time really traveling. I was raised by a single mom who was a high school math teacher. Mm-hmm. And we didn't...
Travel wasn't in the budget, huh?
We traveled. We would do camping trips and stuff like that, but traveling internationally was never something that was even on my radar.
Right.
And that trip really kind of changed things for me and gave me a bigger worldview and, gave me that travel bug. So...
Have a favorite place you've gone?
So... Oh my God, I have a lot of favorite places. Thailand was probably one of them.
That's cool.
Traveling, especially through the mountains in Thailand, I saw what a life of excess so many of us lead.
Sure.
And how hard other people will work for so much less than what we will.
Really puts things in perspective.
It really, really does. And the privilege that I have.
Yeah.
I think travel has really taught me a lot about the privilege that I have.
I have a friend who has 4 boys, and they're now teenage, actually late teenage, I think early 20s age. But he used to, at a certain age, I think when they were 14, he took them to the third world countries, basically, and just to experience kind of what you just described, right? Like what it could be like not living in America, right? Like the privilege that we do take for granted. And I just loved some of the results that he would share that, it changes the mindset, and especially of young people of seeing what's out there. So as my kids grow, I'd love to do something similar.
To think that so many of the advantages I had are simply because I was lucky enough to be born here. Right. I did nothing to create that.
Sure.
Or, that I was raised by a single mom, but my mom, I watched her go to graduate school and get a master's degree as a single mom. Not everybody raised by a single parent has that. And still I didn't have financial resources that other people had. So to see the privilege that I have simply by being born here was,
Yeah, makes you hopefully appreciate what we have, and because I think a lot of times we just take things for granted and we're not as grateful as we probably should be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also opens your eyes to what it could be like, So it makes sense to me. And I'm a big travel fan myself. I don't get to do it as much anymore with the little ones as far as international travel goes, but we're more on the road trip in Florida type of thing, But I hope that we can get back there again one day. I did go to Prague for a couple of weeks years ago, and Italy, and so I missed some of those international trips for sure.
I'd say Italy was my number 2. for sure.
The food there is amazing.
Yeah,
that
and
was
you
a
don't
cool
gain
experience.
weight.
Yeah, that's true. It was healthy too. You're right. Everyone looks like a model out there, don't they? It's something. All right, so a couple rapid fire questions just to as we wrap up here. So, do you have a favorite book, author, seminar that you ever attended, or even a podcast that you love to digest that you feel like has made an impact on you personally or professionally?
Honestly, the one that I'm reading right now, or audiobook, because I don't really sit down to read, is Let Them.
Let Them?
Yeah, Let Them, Mel Robbins. Really good book, and I actually saw it because it was showing up on my TikTok. But it really, for me, especially right now, where there's so much going on, and you know, and I am super passionate about things that I'm passionate about, and it's just this, it's really something that's helped my mindset lately, and personally and in business. And you know, the concept is, you know, you can't control how other people are going to act or think or talk, and when you do, your body's in such a fight or flight response mode,
Sure.
and you can't be productive with that. You know, if I'm constantly stressed or thinking about this person hasn't responded to me or this person did this, then I'm not ever going to be thinking from a point of abundance.
That's awesome.
But if I just sit back and go, let them.
Yeah.
They don't like me. Let them not like me. It's okay. Not everybody's going to. You know, and I think I'm on chapter 4 right now. It's really been kind of changing for my mindset, especially right now when there's so much going on.
Love that.
You know, we had, you know, hurricanes happen and an election, and you know, the climate's so heated, and you know, it's just, you know, this mindset of just let them.
Yeah.
It's okay. You know, and
it's funny too, because we do, speaking a little bit about politics too, like we live in a very toxic culture when it comes to the political discourse.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always appreciated about our conversations is, even though we probably don't agree on many things, we've always, I think, been pretty respectful of each other's opinions, and we can have a discourse that's respectful, you know?
Let them.
And let them, right. And it's like a lot of people, for whatever reason, aren't willing to have that, even that conversation, never mind actually like view the person as a human.
I think it's challenging though when, you know, when things do become so personal.
Sure.
You know, for me lately, you know, day one executive order was reversing many LGBTQ rights. It's personal.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to have conversations when it is so deeply personal, affecting your everyday life.
Yeah.
But so for me, these mindfulness books and, you know, anything that kind of keeps my headspace in a more positive area, because if it is negative, you're just going to fail in every aspect. You know, I feel the same way about getting into real estate. You know, every book you read, every seminar you take is going to tell you to have 6 months or a year of income saved up. Mm-hmm. There's no amount that's going to be enough. You know, very few people I know are the sole breadwinners for their family in this industry. It's really, really tough. Money comes and goes like this. But if you are stressed about it too much, then you're going to be in this, your mindset can't be in abundance because you're in survival mode.
Yeah.
So for me, just kind of anything that takes my mind back to thinking positively, you know,
I love that.
It's huge. When I first got in the business,
which is really where it all starts, right? The mental mindset is that's the game, no matter what business you're in.
The secret came out when I started my real estate career, and I remember our real estate office put on a big marquee, "Our agents know the secret." And it was something that we did in every sales meeting, you know, going through that book. And again, another book about just, you know, how you're
focus. Yeah, no doubt. Even Tony Robbins, I'm a fan of a lot of his content. I've gone to a couple of his events over the years, and he preaches just that concept of emotional state management, right? And how you do that is through your physiology, through what you're focused on, and through the words. Those three components make up your entire mental, emotional state. Exactly. And if you can identify when you're in a negative emotional state, it's tied into one of those three things.
Well, if you think about any of the motivational coaches, for Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, you know, all of them, it's all about, you know, not just a sales, you know, working hard in a sales approach and, you know, being methodical on how you do things, but your mindset's the biggest component of it.
For sure. No, that's huge. No doubt. Favorite TV show or movie? Do you have one?
Oh my goodness. Favorite TV show? Again, there's a lot of them. You know, I just started watching Parks and Rec.
Okay.
I hadn't watched it in years.
That's a classic. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Anything that doesn't make me think too hard, because we're doing that so...
You need that comedic relief every now and again.
So often, yeah. Anything that's stupid funny is...
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of... what's the guy's name who is the dad in that show? He was in Married with Children as well. He was Al Bundy in Married with Children, but now he's the dad in Park and Rec, isn't he?
Oh no, that was in.
I'm thinking of a different show. Modern Family. My bad.
Yeah,
my bad. Yeah,
another good one.
another classic. Yes. All right. we're at a time, I think. So I'm going to end here with what I call our legacy question. So this is one of my favorite, just to kind of get you to think a little bit about that day, hopefully many, many years from now, when you're on that rocking chair and you're thinking about what you'd want to be most remembered for, right? What would matter most to you in terms of your legacy that you would, leave behind? But just in general, what do you think you'd want to be most remembered for on a personal or professional level?
It's definitely going to be personal, not professional. It's gonna be being a good person. That's simply it. I strive in everything I do to be. I said earlier, a rising tide lifts all ships, and I truly believe that everything I do, personally and professionally, I lead with. I try to lead with kindness and thoughtfulness and how I would want to be treated. I was raised, even though we didn't have a lot of financial resources, that you give before you receive. And that you give freely and willingly, expecting nothing in return. I watched my mom do that to so many people, even when it was not an easy thing to do. And that's just, it's a life lesson that I live by. It guides me in everything. So that's honestly the legacy. I think of, and I'll use my mom as an example, a single mom who didn't plan on being a single mom, who went to college, became a teacher, got a master's degree, went to graduate school, I got a master's degree, and, never made more than $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
But to me, that's such an incredible success story, and the lessons she taught us. So for me, it's not about the houses or financial or, even sales records. That stuff means...
It's fleeting.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
Just being a good person.
I love it. Is your mom still with us? Sounds like a great woman.
She is. She's an amazing woman. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing woman, amazing grandma.
We all love our moms, right? It goes back to the core. All right, we're going to put a bow on the episode, but if anybody wanted to reach out to you, Bobby, just to pick your brain, learn a little bit more about your business over the years, maybe something kind of resonated with them today, what's the best way for someone to reach you?
Yeah, I'm Instagram at Bobby Poth. I think Facebook's the same thing, or Mainframe Real Estate website.
Cool.
But yeah, and if anybody's, again, just needs advice, it's my favorite thing to do.
I love it. And we'll put that different contact information on the description as well and make sure everyone has that. But we're going to end the way we do every episode, which is a challenge to the audience. So if you took the time to listen to this, whether it was live through Facebook or YouTube or any of the platforms out there, or you're listening on any of the 15 plus podcast platforms that we drop our episodes on, what is one action step that you can take from our conversation with Bobby today that'll propel you forward personally or professionally? And that's important because if you're going to invest the time to listen to the conversation, let's do something as a result of it, or else a lot of times it's just wasted the time that you invested. And so what's one little thing that you can do? Maybe it's simply picking up a book that Bobby mentioned that you think can make a difference on your mindset, or maybe following up with someone like Bobby on the client appreciation parties concept that he shared, which I think is a great idea for building your network, or any of the other associations that you can dive into in a local level that you're passionate about, just like Bobby found to help him grow his business. Maybe you have questions about whether you want to be a broker or not, and you heard Bobby's story, and that's another path you can take. But what is it, right? What's one thing that you can do today that's going to move you forward in the right direction? And if you do that, then the time you invested is worth it in the episode here today. Again, check us out at topproducersnation.com to learn how to join that community and get access to all the resources we have to help you become a top producer in your desired market, which is really our mission. We want to try to help 1,000 agents become top producers in 2025 in your desired market within the resources of that community. So check that out there, and we will see you on the next episode of the Top Producers Nation podcast. See you later. Bye.